right now.
Last year for me.
All right, guys. Welcome to the Deer Shot Podcast, presented by Siman Brothers Outdoors and the Leaky John Boat Company.
Your track job was the first fun track job.
Oh, that was the best.
That kind of like, I think part of my life was influeed by that night.
Looking back on it, my biggest regret was opening day. I knew where it needed to be. I should have just done a simple hang and bang off the corner of that field, and he would have been toast. But I didn't.
That was our first public land deer hunting trip, and it went extremely well. 5 years ago, we couldn't shoot a deer at 100 yards with a slug gun. Now you're shooting turkeys at 100 yards with a shotgun.
It was a 90-yard shot.
Pass through. And then you miss him 3 times with a rifle at 70 yards on video for the whole world to see.
That's what Caleb did. This is the first buck I've shot in over 10 years. And, not to get too crazy emotional about it, but like
10 years, no buck. All right, guys, episode 73, Deer Shot Podcast. I'm cashing in my one podcast a year where I get Nick in the studio to spill his guts. It only happens one time a year, and today's the day.
I think you guys got a couple last year.
Yeah, we're gonna, and we'll get into that. I'm gonna bring him in here to get some people riled up and have some opinions on stuff in the off season.
Light some fires.
Yeah, when we need to.
This definitely probably solidifies him as the most episodes per guest that's not one of the brothers, I would assume.
Yeah, I had the countdown somewhere. Alex is up there too. Alex and Ryan have been in a bunch.
Those two love it.
Yeah, those two do love it. Alex was the one that really pushed us to get this podcast stuff. He's like, do it. I'll buy a headset. I think he bought a headset.
He did buy one of the headsets.
One of these headsets is Alex's, now that I remember. Man, is it shitty out.
Disgusting.
It is disgusting out. It is December 15th. So you killed Blizzard Buck 1 year ago tomorrow, or yesterday. Somewhere around this time.
It was the 19th. 18th or 19th.
Day before extended gun,
No,
probably?
it was after. Day after.
Oh.
Was it the day
It was
after?
Monday.
Oh, you took gun with you and didn't have any encounters.
Yeah.
Right? That's right.
Yeah, it was the Monday after extended gun.
Yeah.
So we're getting into peak late season deer hunting right now, but
we had a little taste of it because it got really cold and snowy for a minute, and we had some deer show up. Luke, I don't know if he would have. I think the conditions were ideal for Luke hunting, but Luke's the guy in the group right now that's sitting on should have been hunting because his target buck showed up and wasn't there.
I mean, that's the MO for the last 15 fucking years of Luke.
besides last year when he went hard in and killed his best buck ever, second best buck ever. Luke, and it's funny, he hunted the day before and the day after.
that deer knows something, though, so it's not showing up when he's there. So it's either catching his wind or it's super flat where he's hunting. That deer's watching
flat
it. That deer's
for
just
our
watching
area.
It. Yeah.
I think the other day I wasn't going to spend my time arguing with him because Luke is at the point where he doesn't listen to me anymore in life. And he doesn't have to. He's a grown-ass man. But when he was like, I'm going in there with an edgy wind and I'm going to, tonight, I'm going to kill him tonight because I'm going in there. It's an edgy wind. For one, it was an awful wind. It was the worst wind for that spot. But he thought he'd be able to catch him slipping up. He saw 0 deer and nothing hit the cameras till 11 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So they all winded him. They all knew he was there. It was a bad move. His move to make, it was a bad move. This time of year, edgy winds are off.
That buck hasn't been back since then, I don't think.
He has not been back since. He was there for 2 or 3 days, once in daylight. Luke went in and hunted him the next day, but the bad wind, sayonara. But we have plenty of time. We have 6 or 7 weeks.
We need some weather.
Yeah, we were going to hang stands today and take care of some stuff and get Tyler set up and get some the cameras have been dead on their farm and your guys' farm because you were in Mexico. Mm-hmm. But the weather's it's literally fucked out there. It's 38 degrees and raining. We're not doing anything today.
Well, we did the big re-push with our farms and just nothing has showed up.
No, I fucked up. We haven't talked about that on a podcast yet. I checked one of my other farms, one of the few other farms that I hunt.
That's far from here.
It's an hour. It's an hour drive. It's like 52 minutes. So that's why I don't hunt it that often. But it does have a potential for good deer. Hung some normal trail cameras in early November, some non-cells, and left them until the Monday after gun season. Went and picked them up, dumped a shit pile of corn, picked up those cameras. And mid-November, at least 4 or 5 different times. And the landowner and his dad had each seen this buck and told me about it. But there was a lot going on mid-November where I wasn't hunting over there. And I should have been because
he's a giant.
Yeah, I mean, he's a mainframe 140, 145, 10, but he's got a lot of junk on the one side, probably 20 of extra on the one side. He's got a lot. Like for whatever reason, that farm has a bunch of deer that are all fucked up always. So, I mean, I don't know what he would actually score because he actually loses. He doesn't have the right tines on the one side, but I mean, he's a 140-inch, 150-inch buck.
Yeah,
and he was there a lot, and now he
non-typical.
He hasn't been there since November 20th or 22nd.
So we haven't had a mature buck per se there. Maybe a couple 4-year-olds, but they've all been small.
Yeah, that farm has a lot of bucks using that corn I put out right now. I mean, nightly, multiple 3-year-old bucks are hitting it, but they're all like 125-inch 3-year-olds.
But
they're all right there. Not the deer I'm going to shoot yet, but like, ooh, that's a nice buck. You look at it, okay, it's not a shooter, but he's like almost there.
But you can see the difference between that property and this area.
Oh.
We're lucky to get it 1 3-year-old cruising by. This property had 3 3-year-olds eating at the corn at the same time.
Yeah,
That's insanity.
and I think up there the way the rut plays out, I think the rut is like over up there. I mean, it's over. Like you said, all these mature bucks are eating together. Our one camera last night on the food plot had a group of like 5 or 6 bucks hit it.
Fighting.
Nothing bigger than 92 inches, but they were all fighting. So like the testosterone's still going on here. They're not shedding as many antlers, I don't think. Up there, I got a bunch of bucks with 1 antler already.
The deer behavior is like Iowa, and the size is like Pennsylvania going on right now.
I mean, right now it would be cool to go out hunting. You're going to see a ton of deer and bucks doing buck things, and they're all literally dinks.
I've had a lot of 3-year-olds in scrapes the last 48 hours. Probably 5 to 6 different 3-year-olds.
I seen your picture dump yesterday. It was the 10, the young 10 that we both had.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a deer to keep an eye on for next year.
Yeah,
for sure.
Hopefully.
Yeah, right. We still got we got to convince Tyler not to shoot that deer, which is going to be hard to do.
Yeah.
We'll definitely get into
Which
that.
one?
The
one with the little kicker off his brow, or his base, and he was here one day, and he's been at their farm a lot. But
Was that one of the ones he was debating during gun season?
yeah, it's the one that was bedded down in daylight when we were in his gator. He's like, he wanted to go shoot that buck, and I told him no.
When on a different farm, there was a 5-year-old buck.
Yeah,
Daylight.
and he
Maybe scored about the same, but a way more mature deer.
Yeah, and he had his own. Those guys have
Tyler.
their own
It was
Their
personal
own motives.
Yeah, their own. Him and Tate are like oil and water, but Tate did everything he needed to do to have that buck killable for Tyler, and we got close. I do believe he appeared for us early that night with another buck. He then slipped off with the does. The other buck hung on the fringe for like an hour. We videoed him for about an hour eating acorns. Totally ignored the corn pile.
And you
Totally ignored.
You guys would have been properly set up in stands in
Oh,
history.
he could have killed him from your
You
stand.
guys were hunting like a bunch of bums.
It was underneath your stand the whole time. They were up that way. They were the whole entire time we were hunting. He was up by that ladder stand.
So if you weren't hunting like hobos, you would have got a much better chance.
And Tate even admitted it. He put that corn out. And he's like, "There's no really good stand to hunt it. It's just there for like inventory," which it was working, but there was no good stand to hunt it. But we watched the smaller buck, like 115, 120 inch 8-point for a long time. Then the neighbor shot, and they all took off. But when the neighbor shot and we were like, it was getting the last light, I saw a whole bunch of tails were down that way. We were watching like 1 or 2 does in that buck. There was like 10 tails. So that other buck, I think, was probably rooting around and doing whatever. But he's still killable. He was alive. He was on trail camera that evening, so he made it through.
Well, we could probably do a little update on the end of gun season because our last episode was midweek.
Yeah, that was mine and Tyler's hunt. You sat our farm in an area that I think I'm going to start. Me and you talked about this. We're going to start to focus on that area late season to see if we can pull something off a neighboring property.
And it was a weird weekend because it didn't seem like much happened.
Nobody hunted Saturday, and these guys were in Mexico still. So even though Nick doesn't do a lot of gun hunting with us, with Nick being gone, we didn't really touch any of his properties and stuff. So we didn't do any driving. There was 0 driving this year, 0 hunting by any of our guys on Saturday of gun season. It was a little bit strange towards the end there. How was Mexico?
Fucking shithole. No, the resort's cool. It's fun, but
You were there. You guys were there a long time.
yeah, about a week. What a dog shit country.
Yeah, you are in a third world country.
I mean, it was like driving through a Call of Duty map. It was unbelievable.
That's awesome. Lately, the video podcast has been doing really good on YouTube. A lot of people are tuning in, which we very much appreciate that. So subscribe, listen to on whatever streaming app you use. We no longer have any idea what we're going to rank on the charts because we got chartable down or sunlighted. So what do they call it? Moonlighted? Moonset?
I think it just means they're out of business.
Yeah,
They were just
so
trying to
Chartable
say
went out of business, so there's no longer wilderness podcast charts available to the public without paying for it, and we're not paying for that. It's cheap. So, but we've been charting on that in the between 150 and 200 for the last month or so, but I don't know where we're going to be after this. I don't know if anyone knows where they're going to be because we've kind of gone, but the podcast videos have been doing real good. CJ Alexander got sentenced finally, and we don't need to go far into that because Isaac kind of wants to do a dive into this sentencing, and then we're going to talk about some other high-profile poaching cases. I think those podcasts did well whenever we talked about it.
For some reason, it is such a hot topic. I don't know why.
Well, I know.
People care so much about the poaching aspect of things.
It's shocking to me how many people on our YouTube comments defend what CJ did. I mean, probably 1 out of every 10 guys that comments on there will say, all this over deer, that's bullshit. There's nowhere for people without money to hunt anymore. We've all crossed property lines. One guy just ventured on there. Did you see that long comment I made?
No.
One guy's like, 90% of people cross the line and hunt behind the church and hunt behind the Walmart. That's just the way it is now. And I'm like,
I don't know what 90% you fucking hang out
yeah,
with.
like your circle of guys.
And he's
is
sharing
obviously-
specifics about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, like someone got on there and was like, oh, but there's a lot of guys who have been defending him.
Yeah, that's insane. Well, I think it just shows how much poaching and illegal shit happens because,
Yeah.
I mean, our game warden isn't present in Medina County. I mean,
No, and we try not to let on too much about that, but the law presence here has not been what we would want it to be.
No.
It's been a free-for-all for a very long time. Multiple factors in that. It's not, I mean, OD&R budget and stuff is probably the big one and all that. Mm-hmm. We need 2 game wardens per county is what we need, but that ain't ever going to happen.
No.
But I think it says a lot about, it's almost like the Robin Hood like situation. There's a lot of people that can sympathize with CJ being not well off, doing what he can, raising his kids. Like, fuck those rich people that have that big buck. Like, I go on there and shoot the big buck neighbor and buck too.
There's a lot of
There's
people
a lot
that
of people that
sympathize with
don't
that.
see anything wrong with that. Like, basically, fuck the big guy,
Oh, yeah.
which is a weird position because, as romantic as that is, like, we're all landowners or family landowners. So, like, we're on the opposite side of that. Like, we have chunks of property where assholes have been coming over the line. You dealt with years,
Oh, yeah.
your property that you bought, years worth of poaching and people trespassing because they just assumed it was still owned by the old farmer or it wouldn't be a big deal. And when you're putting your time, effort, and money into these properties and then some punk-ass kid with a lipper in shoots a used crossbow and kills your target buck you've been watching for 5 years, that's a problem.
Oh, yeah.
But they don't see it that way. They see
No.
it the opposite way. They're
No.
like, fuck those guys. But so it just depends on what side of the fence you're on.
And a lot of people see it, the deer, as they're allowed to go out and kill it. It's a natural resource, blah, blah, blah. They don't have to follow the rules.
Well, no, and that guy actually, you're making me remember. He commented like, "Well, people, like landowners, shouldn't have to buy anything." And I'm like, man, this guy obviously doesn't have a fucking clue because landowners don't have to buy anything. Like they don't have to.
But he thinks that they should be able to go kill deer year-round.
Yeah.
It's their property, blah, blah, blah. But we've passed the point of deer having the advantage, and the only thing that is advantage to them is the laws now.
I would agree
Oh,
with
yeah.
that.
Yeah. So 100%, the only thing protecting the deer is the game laws.
I mean, in Ohio, you have a 4.5 month season. You can use crossbows to shoot 500 feet per second. All the corn in the world, box blinds, rifles now that can shoot 300
Drones.
yards, drones that can find. And Nick's
Drones.
gonna love these drones. Drones that can find the deer legally, land them, and then go hunt. I mean, the deer has no advantage anymore.
The only advantage they have is those game laws that people choose to follow or not choose to follow.
I've seen a lot of people do the whole like, well, you ever got a speeding ticket? What's the difference? You know,
That's a big difference.
to me, there's a big difference, but that brings us into the Great Debates podcast we've talked about a few times. This offseason, we're going to have a series of like the most controversial topics that we would enjoy covering, you know, namely crossbows, baiting, public land hunting versus private land hunting. We already did sort of one about that, but it's going to be more along the lines of, you know, a guy like us hunting our farm, if we travel somewhere, are we going to kill the same caliber of deer, or are we lowering our standard for traveling? That's a big debate that's been going on. So we're going to bring some guys in for that. And that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to those podcasts.
And with all these technological advances, it's going to be interesting to see what laws come about to limit those. So if there is any limit on crossbows, like say they can't shoot more than 500 feet per second, or
I mean, the drone thing I think is going to be covered pretty quickly.
I started getting emails that say like, here, what are your thoughts for next season and blah blah blah. All those emails we get from.
I'm going to hammer them with the drone thing. I think it's okay to use them to recover deer, but in the gray area is going to be if you find them alive. The gray area is the deer is still alive. But to be able to use them to find deer for hunting purposes, they have to find a way to make that not legal.
Yeah.
And somehow
I don't know what you do about that.
Well, somehow the western states have really been on the forefront of limiting technology when it comes to. I don't think there's any that you can fly a drone
No, I think
while you're hunting anymore.
I think Iowa's still dog
only
because like all the guys on like any of the Iowa shows we've watched that have a wounded deer, none of them bring a drone and they all bring in a dog tracker. So
And like the further west you go, the more laws there is. Like a lot of those states you can't use crossbows. Like Montana, Idaho, can't use crossbows at all. Some of them you can't use expandable broadheads. Some you can't use lighted nocks. Utah just sent me an email I was reading. One of their deer units is going to be recurve or longbow only next year.
really,
Yeah.
West Virginia still has that bow only 4 county, and that's where they kill a lot of giant deer. West Virginia is that 4. There's 4 counties that are bow only.
So I could see stuff like that maybe happening, but our states would have to change the way they do things.
I saw someone comment on I can't remember if it was a video or where it was. I think it was a Logan Irvin podcast. They commented that they'd like to see us get rid of it in Ohio here, get rid of extended gun weekend, the extra 2 days, axe that, have a week in January or maybe make it the same week as extended gun into Christmas or January, the first week in January, a whole week, 7 days, primitive weapons, which is black powder and crossbow.
Just like
or regular.
like Pennsylvania's been
You
doing
could use
that.
a regular any archery you want, including crossbow, and you can use a muzzleloader during that week, and then limit crossbows the rest of the season.
And like Pennsylvania has their flintlock
I don't
only
see them ever
season.
doing that.
They won't ever do it, and I know some guys that listen to our podcast are going to be like, sons of bitches, but I would be okay with that.
Oh yeah, I'd totally.
The week-long gun season is plenty, I think.
Yeah, for the 450s now. I mean, we had a record harvest on Monday. It was cold, and the weather was great, and it was the most deer harvested here in like 25 years. So that proves that there's not a lack of deer and not a lack of hunters to me.
I don't remember there being a gun season with the weather that we had last week.
No.
You know,
Cold, and then it
this
got
is usually
snowy.
what we have during gun season.
Yeah.
Right. Or hot.
40 and rain or 65.
Yeah. I remember specifically, I have seen frogs and snakes in the woods during gun season before, which is December in Ohio. It's not right. But
Yeah.
it popped up on its own. I was not going to put it on, but we might as well just talk about it since it's up there now. Last 2 things before we talk all about next season. I wanted to touch on a couple YouTube things that have happened and in the hunting industry, things that happened. For one, Lee from Seek One's buck video, his Ohio buck that he killed, which I know was a great debate when he first killed it. No one knew if it was Ohio, West Virginia, New Jersey, Wisconsin, but it was an Ohio buck, and it's a 2.5 hour long video, but it's awesome.
Oh, great video.
It was a great video. It was awesome. It showed, I don't think he intended for this to be, I don't think it was his intentions to show it, but it proved it to me. The way he hunts those deer in the city is the same way he killed that deer in the country. And those bigger, older deer that get 6, 7, 8 years old, I'm talking true, mature monarchs of a deer, old deer, they do key in on human intrusion and human presence and bed accordingly. And they don't bed 5 miles away in the thickest, nastiest swamp as far away from humans as possible. That's not how they act. They find Meemaw's property or next to a development where no one ever goes into these thicket woods, and they live there for weeks at a time. Early October, that buck was in and out all the time.
With the humans come low deer density, right? So, I mean, if he could share that area with 3 does, I mean, that's best case scenario for him. He don't have them young shit bucks pestering him or
right.
And
you know,
hang out by himself.
From what we kind of saw in the video, obviously Lee will never show his full deck of cards, but that bedding area, the only thing he showed besides that giant buck coming in and out next to that garage, living next to that river, was a couple does here and there coming through. He never talked about, oh, here comes a 130-inch 3-year-old. You know, like that deer wasn't in there. obviously his buck was feeding in some big ag. He found his sheds in some big ag, and during the rut, and all bets are off during the rut. That deer's going to go. He's going to go do his fucking. But during that early season, transferring or like where he's just going out to food, the October lull, and then probably the late season, that deer probably wasn't moving very far off that little piece at all. Finding the sheds on that video was awesome.
Can you imagine?
They look like farm buck sheds.
Oh, they
like
did.
Literally deer farm sheds. He was definitely bigger the year before.
Yeah. Can you imagine that though? Walking up on
No.
a shed like that. Like we're excited to find this.
100 sheds.
You know.
This right here is excitement. This right here is like a top 2 or 3 shed for the whole season for us. And then every 5 years we find a real nice one that scores like 60 or 70. I think my biggest is 82. Those sheds were 100.
Yeah, each one was 100 inches.
100-inch
He was
sheds.
holding them by the main beams, and his fingers didn't even wrap around them.
God, like how? I mean, that would be the dream. And the funny part is, like, not funny, like business wise, he's gonna make $20,000 off that video or more.
Already has.
Yeah, he's gonna make $25,000 off the video or more because a 1 hour long video that gets 1 million views is worth about 15 to 20 grand, depending on your CTR. His is 2.5 hours. He gets 1 million views on that. 25, 30, 40,000. The sheds are probably worth 5,000 or 6,000 a piece.
And I'm sure you can
Literally a piece.
Yeah.
And then you can double that number in brand deals and merch that he sells, I'm sure.
Right, and he's already got his whole thing, but you sell that deer, a 212-inch Ohio buck like that, Cabela's will buy it for 10 grand, 12 grand. He's got $50,000 wrapped up in shooting that buck. Profit.
Well, that's
Yeah, he drove back and forth a lot. He's got the camera equipment. He's got all the stuff.
That's what he does for a living.
The deer itself made him 50 grand.
The one thing that surprised me when I was watching that video is like it seemed like every week he was driving up and he's in there, he's in there, and I'm like, holy fuck! Like this guy's getting away with murder. He was like you, just
I know.
Oh, I gotta get that picture. And I'm
In
like,
there,
I'm
in
like,
there.
I thought about that a lot because Luke, now that Luke doesn't listen to me anymore, Luke was doing that thing where he tells me, and he's right. I spend way too much time in the woods, and it is what it is. But like Lee was spending, he bumped him once hanging stands. Like he was spending a lot of time in the woods, and it didn't seem to matter per se. But
he's also hunting that deer in an area where there's somebody mowing the lawn right close by and somebody blowing leaves. We're going into our sanctuaries a couple times a week.
As soon as we're done hunting this year, like as soon as we are done with this farm, our home farm, I'm going to, because like January, February, March is a rough time. The cell cameras had to be alive because of our plan, but there's not much to do with them besides try and find some sheds. I think I'm going to put a lot of our cell cameras on video mode, mounted up high in these thick bedding areas right around the house here. And I want to see how many deer are coming in and out. And like, what if the buck that we're trying to hunt's like bedding within 200 yards of us? We talk about all the time, but literally watching us through that window right now.
Well,
it could be.
We know that's the best bedding area on our farms, but we never hunt it because it's so close.
Right.
And it's so impossible to hunt with the winds.
Well, they'll see you coming. If you walk to the edge of it, they can see across the whole thing. But Dad's buck, one shed was found within 20 feet of the road over there, and one was found within 70 feet of the road over there. I mean, we found his sheds within 70 feet and 20 feet of the road. I mean, what does that tell you?
Yeah.
He's there.
We always go to the outer edges of our properties when we should be in the middle.
we also talk every time this time of year that Caleb's in the woods too much.
He loves being in the woods.
And then all summer long, it's we're going to change this, and then as soon as September hits,
I think I was in the woods a little bit less this year.
I think it's just what you like to do, and
yeah.
It is.
you need to go to the park.
Yeah, Buckeye Woods.
I actually did go to the park a lot this year, but I still was in the woods.
Just go hang out in the woods. You should go to the public piece around us and go fuck around in that woods all the time.
I did before Blair was born. I took Rhodey in their shed hunting a bunch.
There is deer to be killed there. I went and walked around like the main trail all the way around the lake, and like it's beautiful woods.
Oh, the south side up top is fucking beautiful. Mm-hmm. And that's where our turkey was poached. Like our gobbler was poached out of there this year. The last thing I want to talk about, you haven't taken a swig of the kill bottle yet.
No, I'm not ready for that.
You got to. You killed a buck this year.
Couple beers.
All right, get a couple. You killed a buck this year. We got a bottle, the kill bottle. Nick is more of a working class fan than I am, but I listen to certain podcasts on working class bow hunters, like the one I just listened to with Kurt's 200-inch buck. That was an awesome podcast. I don't have time to listen to 691 episodes. I don't drive as much as like Nick does. But I do like to catch up every once in a while. So before we leave today, Nick's got to hit the kill bottle.
So that's pretty much been the tradition. Everybody that's killed a buck has hit that, huh?
Yep. I haven't tasted it yet. I have no idea.
Kendall got a sip of it, and I haven't even yet.
Yep.
She had a sip.
She killed a buck.
Yeah, she killed a buck.
Damn.
Yeah. They were drinking bourbon in her house last night. Isaac's all hungover drinking water
It was
now.
a big Christmas party last night. But it's in
Her
the
family kills the bourbon.
I guess we haven't talked about the video that released yesterday as people are watching this.
Yeah, it'll be, in real time it releases in like 4 hours, but the home farm deer camp stuff's up, which is I think the last 2 years, at least last year, it was more popular than West Virginia, barely. And then the year before, I think it also might have been more popular. Either way, it's our 1 or 2 most popular videos of the year.
So by the time this posted, if you haven't seen that, go watch it. Lots of bucks die.
Yeah, it was really good.
It was a good week.
It was a good week. I didn't know we were going to be able to sling out an hour-long video from what we filmed, but it was easily an hour long.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was all sorts of bucks on there. Spain's buck, Kendall's buck, Ethan shot a doe.
We talked about that
buck.
a little last week, but yeah, there was three buck recoveries or buck parties in there, 2 does, and then some hunting, some other days where we had some really good hunts. So, there was a lot of content that was shoved into that video, and it actually turned out really well.
Ethan managed to
shoot a doe.
Shoot the only deer that didn't bust him this year.
The videos, you should watch. No. Watch the video. A group of 5 come in, wind him and bust. Another group of 5 come in. I have slow motion of them turning. It is in perfect slow motion with the snow falling. Filmed it in 120 with that camera. The deer turns. Both of them turn simultaneously, look up in the blind, and do like a freak out in slow motion and leave.
And this is a blind that's been there for 2 months. No windows have changed. You can't see in it. And somehow they knew he was there.
Because they hear Ethan breathing from literally, like Nick said, from a county over. But the third group of deer come in, and that deer busted him too a little bit. Like she came in and stopped, and then like stood there like 40 yards, maybe 35 yards for like 10 minutes, then made a circle, and then like came in and he shot her while she was still moving because he wasn't going to even give her a chance to bust. But he smoked her.
We talked about this before we were on the air a little bit. For some reason, Ethan just has these deer on alert at all times.
Right.
We have to do a little bit of a study on this to see what in the hell he's doing. Besides him being a giant man.
They could feel his heartbeat in the ground.
You do bring up a point because I have done most of the video editing for the last 4 or 5 years, and like Isaac's always just like up in the tree filming these bucks walking around. They never look at him. Like Isaac gets the best buck footage out of all of us. Luke actually does a good job of getting a lot of buck footage. They never notice he's up there. I do. Deer don't seem to bust me that much. We'll talk about it a little bit. Nick, we had a couple bad hunts, but otherwise, like we don't get busted too bad. But man, Ethan, every deer is just.
Maybe because he's new to the filming and he's moving when he shouldn't be and he's making noise when he shouldn't be. Something's going on.
I do think there is when you start filming your hunts and you're watching stuff on TV, and like maybe he watches our stuff, he sees how much footage we get and all the stuff we're doing. So I think he thinks he can get away with more than he can. I was going to talk about, with me and Nick, I stopped bringing my camera arm. Our last couple hunts, I totally got rid of camera arms and tripods because it's extra setup, it's extra takedown. The takedown was bothering me. Like we're getting ready, the hunt's over, and like there's some deer milling about.
Maybe you got to start ratcheting on a tree.
Yeah, maybe we just had an encounter with the buck and he left the field. Like it takes me a long time. I'm making a lot of noise taking all my camera stuff down. So the last couple hunts with me and Nick, I was just freehanding the camera, keeping it right here, and it seemed to do better.
And that's another thing. So the footage may suffer a little bit, but like if there's a small buck coming in or does, I might film them a little bit when they're way out there. But then I just stop. There's no reason to film them when they're 20 yards away. You don't need that much footage of a doe under your stand. So I think he's moving and filming them and doing all this crap. Like, yeah, I just let him go. And half the time, if I already got footage of a couple deer that hunt, I won't even turn the camera on if there's does coming by. There's no point.
Yeah, it doesn't add, like, at this
besides
point,
spooking the deer.
At this point, we're only filming, or at least when I'm doing it, I'm only filming to add to the story, and if it doesn't add anything to the story, like opening day of gun season when the 5th doe runs by, like...
There's no reason to turn the camera. I think Ethan's like, oh, God, just get the camera on.
Well, we always harp on missing, maybe, like, oh, did you get any footage of him? No, I missed the footage of, like, a buck skirting by, so, like... There's that fine line of do you hunt or do you film? But for me, it's easier with the bow hunting. I mean, when you're bow hunting, you can only shoot the deer when it's inside 30 yards. So the entire time the deer's outside of 30 yards,
you can mess around with your camera as much as you want.
You can just only pay attention to your camera, have your bow in your hand. It's not that hard. But gun hunting to me is harder because that deer's 100 yards away. You got to line up shooting and filming, and it's tough.
Yeah, real tough.
Real tough. But we're here to talk about Nick. Me and Isaac have talked enough. God dang.
Typical.
Yeah, I mean, it is our podcast.
It is.
We're going to talk about Nick's season. I I think it was a good one. At the end, I'm going to ask him how he thinks it was. If it was a great, I don't think he's going to say that it was a great season, even though he did kill a good deer. It was a Nick season there for a while, but there were some things that happened that kind of, for lack of a better term, sucked. And then, you do have a great deer on the wall, but let's pick it up in late summer. The typical Nick season. We're putting out cameras in soybean fields and.
Yeah, it was the usual soybean fields. Didn't really have that many deer to look for because so many died last year.
Yes.
Flyer 8 showed up. He looked really good in velvet.
A buck you passed a bunch last year.
Yeah,
a bunch.
Passed him a lot. I mean, gun, bow.
You were sending us cell phone videos,
Yeah.
like 12 yards.
Yeah.
And he was probably 130 something last year.
Yep.
But yeah,
he was a deer last year that it was better to let him go.
it was a good decision.
But then there just wasn't much developing going into season, which usually my summers suck. I never really have much, so you don't really put a lot of weight into that. But the year prior was off the charts during the summer.
Yeah, it spiked, which caused a.
Yeah, so this year
You're expecting the same.
Yeah, so rolling.
Minerals suck this year.
Oh, they were awful.
Awful.
The worst they've been. And then rolling the season still wasn't a lot until probably October 15th, 20th. Had a bunch of new deer show up or familiar deer.
Yeah.
So then
the corn was maturing around then too.
Yeah, well, we had that
crop rotation.
We had a weird year because we had that drought, so it was like the beans dried up, the corn was dry, and when they came into harvest, it was like plow the beans, do the beans, and do the corn right afterwards.
Yep.
I think all the crop was off by, beginning of November.
Yeah, the farmers had no way to bitch about the weather and the harvest. They just bitched about the yield because of the drought. But I mean, everything was off.
Yeah,
Which is weird. We usually have standing corn during gun season sometimes.
yeah,
It was gone.
a lot of times. But it seemed like with the weather, it seemed like the action at that place started to heat up maybe a week sooner. So scrapes were on fire, had new bucks show up, had Tyler's buck show up, which shocked us all because we thought he was dead.
Yeah, we've
had that series of night pictures and just were like, wow, that's a good wide buck,
Yeah, we didn't know it was him the first time he showed up. We just like, damn, that's something.
And it was Saturday, I think it was like the 18th or 19th. I'm at Bueller's. I'm going to get some steaks or something Saturday night to grill. And I shit my pants when he came in. Flyer 8 came in, destroyed a scrape. It was hour and a half before dark. And then Tyler's buck came in. And then when we got the videos is when I'm like, oh, my God, that's him.
Quick backstory. We have declared Tyler's buck dead twice in the past.
2 times, yeah.
2022. He disappeared after gun season. The old guys that we'll talk about later in this podcast said that they shot at a big buck, couldn't find him, found some blood, all this crap. He was gone. That was a deer that Nick was really trying to kill that year. Mm-hmm. Gone. Nothing in December, January, February, March, April, June, July.
Wrote him off after being a daily deer.
Daily.
Yeah.
For the whole summer, too. About July of 23, he just showed back up on trail cameras, hitting the same mineral licks, same bean fields, bigger. Oh, my God. Unbelievable, awesome story. I did a video how he was dead already, so we got to change all that. October 15th, 2023, the only podcast we've ever missed. We've had 73 weeks of podcasts, and we missed 1 week because Tyler, on that night that we were going to podcast, shot an arrow through his left back leg. Crossbow bolt, 20 yards, through the knee.
Mega meat
through the knee. Mm-hmm. We've talked about it. We've shown videos. He showed back up after that late season, limping bad. His leg was literally the size of a propane tank. Oh. It was disgusting how ugly he was.
For sure it was going to fall off.
He shed his antlers in like November or December. Like
it had to be late December because
but it was before the season was over.
Early January he had already shed.
Yeah, he was walking around limping with his fat, disgusting leg, skinny
meat hanging out of it.
So bad. And then we didn't find his sheds. We didn't find his corpse, even though we found a lot of other dead deer. He was not on the minerals. He was dead. Read him off.
Nope.
Till October 15th.
Well, and then it turned out, looking back at it, I was in Outer Banks, and I got a picture of a super wide buck out in that bean field.
Yep.
And I'm 100% certain it was him.
He was
But-
just using different parts of those fields where we weren't running traditional
Yeah,
trail cameras
yeah.
because they're huge.
Oh, massive. Massive ag. So, yeah, he showed up, and then
Daylight. He was daylight in those videos,
Yeah.
which was like
yeah,
Well, you guys had some speculation at this
it was
point,
the
right?
same. It was a year to the day, or like maybe one day off of when Tyler shot him. One field over.
So wasn't
I
there-
mean, he was literally
Wasn't
he
there
was
some-
living right where he was last year in the same place.
There was some speculation, but then you got a video showing his leg, and it was pretty definitive after that.
Yeah, we saw a hole. The one video like just kind of showed a hole.
And you guys are like, no way.
But then there was some other videos where his leg was still a little bit swollen, probably because he started moving around more and rutting. So his leg was swollen. It was discolored. Like it was 100% him.
oh yeah.
And his rack is not the same at all.
Not, like rack identification, you wouldn't
0% chance.
Yeah.
He's still big though. It was big.
Yeah, he
Huge.
was.
Probably 23, 24 inches wide.
Yep.
Massive. But
Yep.
I digress. I'll let Nick go.
Yeah, so he showed up, and then there was a buck on the back burner from last year that we got one series of trail camera pics during the summer.
Yeah, right out. Was he in Velvet still?
Yeah, he's in Velvet. It's probably like late August.
It was when that you got a video of that lady walking around that day too, or right around
Yeah,
that same day,
yeah.
same camera.
Same camera, yeah.
Yeah.
And then one of the guys we know sent me sent a picture. to
Someone who is listening.
Yeah,
right now,
sent a
sure.
picture of the group chat trying to fuck with me because he probably tried to kick the cage a little bit, and it was him.
Does he know that you missed this deer yet? I don't think they do.
I don't think they do either.
They have never talked about it. They know you missed a buck, and we're gonna get to that. I'm spoiling some shit, but they don't know that you missed that buck.
yeah, I don't.
And they haven't seen. I know they haven't seen any of the video because
No.
I haven't sent it to them.
Yeah, because Pavlik would
Yeah,
would
he'd pick up on it instantly.
Oh,
He'd be
yeah.
like, "Oh my!" He's gonna be like,
I-
"You fucking sons of bitches."
yeah. I was expecting it 2 weeks ago.
No, he hasn't seen it. He has not seen a single shred of it yet.
Yeah.
And when people do see this video, it's not that buck, it's the buck.
Yeah. So
He gets that title for sure.
Yeah, we don't have a name for him, so
No.
we call him the Buck. I
He's-
guess
he's big.
He's never been.
he only came through during the rut.
Yeah,
last year for you.
he's a calendar buck. So, looking back at all the pictures, which I knew his dates basically by heart. I looked at them so much. I knew the window he would show up. I knew when he would start showing up, and he was basically following it to a T. It was like within a day or two. It was like, okay, November 1st, I had him on camera. Boom, he'd be on camera November 2nd. Then it just started picking up more and more. So then I think it was probably had to be around the 16th or so of November. I can't remember the day. It was a Saturday, Sunday. We're getting really into the heart of when he was there last year,
Yeah.
daylighting. And
Our hunts at that point, up to that point, have sucked.
oh, they're terrible.
I mean, me and Nick had at least one true shutout and another where we saw deer like on the way in and the way out, and like no deer from stand.
which I think that was probably mid to late October.
It's like we showed up to the party an hour early.
Yeah, we
there was
pulled we
talent.
pulled the Narders.
Yeah, there was
we're like,
no
hey,
talent.
we ain't gonna make it, and then we're fucking there 2 hours
Yeah,
before the doors
and
open.
there was no talent there.
Yeah.
We were there like no.
Yeah, and leading up to that, right after that, I mean, my hunts were getting better by the hunt. It'd be a bunch of 3-year-olds, a bunch of bucks, a bunch of young bucks.
You had a parade of like non-shooter but decent bucks come through the one day right on a doe.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
hard.
Yeah,
right underneath your stand.
and the hunts were just getting better and better. And then there was the night where I saw him. He fought off another buck and towered over his doe right at last light, and was
the save you. I'd
Yeah.
come save you from the tree.
They're
and
like,
it worked.
Yeah, yeah. It was like he was probably 60 yards away from me, just towering over a doe at last light, and she bedded down in a downfall. So I called Caleb. I'm like, hey, you need to drive back here and blow him out, so that way it didn't give me up.
It had to happen.
Yeah.
And I actually had
It worked.
Isaac do that for me during gun week.
Did you?
Oh yeah.
It works.
We'll get to it. It does. It does.
you-
They don't care about that.
No, but you crawling your fat ass down a set of sticks. They're like,
What in the world is that?
It's that and there's that unmistakable like of the human right after the hunt. You're just like walking right back to your truck. Like they know exactly what that is.
Yeah. So that happened. Saw him. That was the first time I saw him, and then I can't remember the date. It was
Yeah, I know we all were in the woods, and it was actually a pretty good night.
It was a Saturday night. I had him come in, and I had to pass him at 41 yards on a 1/4 and 2 shot.
Yeah.
So he came in, and it was working out perfect, and there's a little watering hole right directly to my west, and he was 41 yards, and I could hear him slurping every ounce of water out of that little puddle, just slurping and slurping. And I'm like, okay, he's going to do one or two things. He's going to break off of it and come give me a 20-yard shot, or he's going to turn around and go backwards. And what do you know it? He continued on north, kind of cut away from me, past the 41-yard shot, which ate me up all night long. But
yeah,
right. It was the right
group chat that night was pretty miserable. I was mad I wasn't filming you because it was beautiful. It was what we would live for, and I would have been able to film it perfectly because you were in the Ned tree. You're in a tree. You'd already killed a 150-inch buck from. Very familiar with it. I wasn't hunting with you. You had this great encounter. And nothing resulted of it.
Yep. So I watched him just slowly work off to the north, and then I watched him for probably 10 minutes, just mosey through the woods, and where he was going is where all the does kind of traffic around at. So I gave him time after dark before skedaddling out of there. So then it's like depression, because how many times do you get a chance at a mature buck?
You're
right?
at 2 right there.
So
2 times.
So yeah, that's 2 times I've seen him. So it's like
You wrote it off. You said there's no way you're going to get another.
yeah.
Because your internal clock on when he leaves the property was ticking.
Oh yeah.
Because you knew he's, like you said, a calendar buck.
Oh yeah.
But then one little whiff, one little wrong move, and
that's
he's out of there.
this next hunt is that.
So that night, I think I came over here.
One of those nights you came over after all that because Luke had a good encounter. We were watching him. He had a buck in a cornfield chasing a bunch around. Someone might have killed or something.
I can't remember.
We were doing something in here. Was that near Dylan's buck's time, maybe?
It might have been.
I think they were just cutting up Dylan's buck.
Yeah.
No, because that was the night I got that was episode 60, whatever, where I got fucking plowed.
Yeah. Your soul is huddled up down here.
My wife's. I'm still in trouble. I am still in trouble from that day a little bit.
That podcast is funny.
We're not going.
I had people that I didn't even know listened to this podcast reaching out to me like, "How fucked up was Caleb?" I'm like,
blackout.
I'm like, so blackout. He told the date and time for him, or vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, it was. It was top 5 for sure.
So had that encounter on Saturday, and then went back to the same spot Sunday.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be a south wind, and which would work for there. So I get in early, beautiful crisp morning, and things were moving slow. And I want to say it was probably like 7:30, 7:45. Heard something off to the west again, and here he comes bumping in a doe, and she's heading towards that watering hole again, and she had the option to either go right past the watering hole and drag him right in front of me, quartering away shot under 30 yards. But for whatever reason, she bumped and came to the north side of that watering hole. When she did that, she just kind of stopped and stood there. And he was like, man, I'm going to get a drink. So he starts drinking again.
It's incredible how well that little watering hole is.
Oh my God. So
incredible.
I'm standing there. I got my bow in my hand. I'm waiting for her to go whatever direction she's going to go and take him. And the wind, well, before that happened, there was a 3-year-old buck bumping the rest of the does she was with up like an old logging road. And they were causing some commotion. And he was looking back, checking that out, keeping his eye on the doe. The wind must have swirled just a hair and gave him a hair scent. And instantly he picks his head up and he's trying to get that scent back.
Licking his nose,
looking around, but he could not get it again.
Yeah.
He got it one time and he was like, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah.
So it kind of put him on edge.
You were hunting a morning too, and they never have. Like mornings don't get hunted there very often.
No.
So like he thought he was going to be able to run around all day.
Yeah.
Before people moved in.
Yeah. So it was probably like, I don't know, 2-3 minutes. He just kind of on alert, still checking the wind, lifting his head up. And at that point, I had told you the day before, I'm like, he's big.
Yeah.
Well, that time I'm just looking at him now.
We didn't really have clear. like really good trail camera video of him. For one, because you're only running cells over there. Like there's not a lot of, we don't have Brownings on scrapes where we can study the deer, and like that didn't happen this year. So we had like video, we knew what he looked like, but we never really had one of those really good close up full rack videos, you know.
So now it's like, you know, it's the most beautiful thing.
This deer keeps growing.
Oh yeah, and I'm watching him. I'm like, at this time I know it's done. So I'm looking at his rack, you know, and I'm like, fuck, he's big. Well, that 3-year-old bumped those 3 or 4 does, and they start taking off through the woods. And like between what that little scent of wind he got and the commotion going on 15 yards behind him, he was just like, fuck this, I'm out of here. So he just turned around, and he didn't blast out of there, tail up or nothing, but he kind of just slowly trotted off.
Yeah.
Just kind of went back into the timber. So then it was like, now I'm on suicide watch, right? Because now
it's really over.
Now it's really over because you're at 3 times you've seen him,
And you bumped him.
2 times within 50 yards, and you feel like he just winded you, right? So now it's like, fuck.
And his days were already numbered.
Yeah, because the year prior, it was like hard November 20th, boom, gone. And I think right now we're at like the 17th, 18th. Yeah. So it's like now it's, you know.
And he's not a 3 or 4 year old deer where you can kind of fuck around and get away with some shit. Like he's 5+, so it's, you know, you're fucked.
Yeah. Yep. So then, I think it was that night, you know, that whole day was just depression. That night, boom, he's on camera. So it's like, okay, he's not blown out of the block yet. And then kept having him on camera, and then it came up to Thursday, which I think was like the 21st, 22nd, in that range. We had a cold front blasting through, bringing snow.
Bringing snow.
One of the
wind.
Wind, snow, everything. So we go out. I had to work.
Yeah,
what time did you guys get out there?
I went hour. Well, I went out first. I went out 2 hours early. I got out, so like if let's say like for all intents and purposes, it gets dark at 6. I was in the tree by 4, maybe a little bit earlier than that, like 3:45, 4 o'clock. But we had to make an audible. We weren't, with the wind direction, we couldn't hunt the tree he'd been seeing him out of. We had to hunt one directly across the field on the opposite side, and we had been in that stand twice, I think, this season, and been busted by does both times. I mean, they come out of the woods where he had been seeing this deer on the other side, and they peg you in the middle of the fucking field. The wind's perfect, but they're just like, they know we're up there, and it's been kind of a pain in the ass.
It was a stand we wanted to move. It just didn't happen.
So I came here first and cut a shit ton of pine branches off the pine trees across the street, like 20 of them, like 24 footers. Wrapped them up in a safety strap, because for one, Nick doesn't have a safety strap in that tree. He does now, but there wasn't a safety harness in there, so we had to clip it to mine. So we'd both be hanging from the same, we'd have 600.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. So anyways, I took a safety strap up there. I got in first early. This is one of the first hunts where I was not setting up a camera arm. I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to hold my camera. And there was like, the way the branches worked out, I was able to kind of build some front cover, not back cover, but front cover. So Nick would have to shoot through, and I'd have to film through pine branches into the field. And the wind was perfect, but the way the things played out, it sketched us out for a minute, but it didn't end up hurting us.
Yeah.
But so I got that all set up, and then Nick showed up. He snuck in, and literally as Nick is climbing up the ladder to get into stand, there's does pouring into the field. Yeah, which was like, we're fucked. At that point, I thought we were fucked because they already had busted us in this tree multiple times, and Nick's getting set up still.
Yeah, I literally just sat down. I don't even know if I have my bow up yet, and I said to Caleb, I'm like, fuck, there's deer right there.
But the weather was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean,
probably 30 degrees, 25, 30 degrees, snowing. Blowing snow.
Yeah,
like wet.
My ideal conditions.
Yeah, I loved it. It's awesome.
So yeah, we had those. I think it was 4 does and a runt buck come out, and then
the runt buck peeled one off.
Yeah,
quickly.
Yeah.
Peeled her off and took her into the woods towards that other stand.
Yep. And then them does ended up going back over to the west side of the field.
They didn't spook, but they definitely. They looked.
They didn't like.
Didn't like it, but they didn't blow and they didn't leave. They kept feeding, which was nice.
Yep. And then, man, it had to be an hour before dark.
Some other does came from the south.
Yeah.
And we're out that way.
Yep.
But you were facing north.
Yeah, I'm facing north.
I'm facing south. He's facing north. You caught movement on the tree line.
Yep. I caught
100 yards away.
Yeah, I caught movement, and I was like, there's a deer up there, and I couldn't.
Downwind.
Yeah, downwind.
From towards the trucks. Like he was looking back toward we walked in.
Yeah. Yep.
Not expecting that.
And I lost sight of him, and then a couple minutes went by, and I saw a deer right in the middle of the field heading straight south towards us. And I put the glass on him, and I was like, holy shit, the 10's in the middle of the field. Caleb, I could hear Caleb, like, his fucking heart jump out of his chest. He was like,
it was perfect. It was awesome. Like,
So-
just to hear,
yeah.
like, I wasn't ready for it because I didn't know there was a deer out there. I'm looking south, watching those does. I'm pretty cold. I got my camera on a strap around my neck, and Nick's just like, the 10's in the field. I'm like, oh, fuck, yes.
Yeah, it was, and he was on a beeline to us, and then he ended up hitting the track of that doe that rump buck picked up. So then he's bobbing in and out of the woods in front of us on our side of the tree line, which we had
We're not expecting that.
No, and we had a southwest wind, so if he went too far to the east, it would have been game over.
I don't know. I mean, he was definitely downwind for a little period of time.
I think he was just,
Horned up.
Yeah, horned up. I mean,
the max.
his nose was glued to the ground.
Yeah, he was like a dog that, like, when you get home and you have someone else's dog sit on you, your dog is, like, on you and then, like, doesn't leave. Like, he
was on that scent.
He never picked his head up.
No.
I mean, he was.
Nope. So we watched him work for probably 3 to 5 minutes, and then he off to the west. And
He cut into those woods where you had been seeing
Yep,
him.
he-
And at this point, it's 150, 200 yards away.
Yep.
Leaving.
Which
He's going into the wind, too.
Yeah, which at the time when it's that early and he's already exposed himself, I felt confident he was going to come back because he left does in the field,
At least 5.
at the field line, and he was on whatever that the trail was for that doe, and he was going to check that out.
I remember I was videotaping him going through those trees 100 yards away into the wind leaving, but I remember in the frame as I'm videotaping, he was going past mature does.
Yeah.
They're like looking at him and he's like
He's
zooming.
stuck on that one.
Yeah, he was.
yeah.
He knew when they get to that age. I mean, he knew which does were already bred or not close, and he knew which ones were close. And he was.
It was no different than when you go into the local bar, and you're like,
Yeah.
I ain't fucking you.
Yeah, right.
That one's
okay.
Yeah, so he bombed off there, and it wasn't 10 minutes later.
It was probably 5.
Yeah, and,
I mean, literally 5 minutes.
and boom, he's right at the field line again, coming out. So when that happened, we had 3 or 4 does, I can't remember how many, feeding right next to us.
yeah,
and
like in range or right out about range, 40
and,
yards.
And the mature doe was pegged on him as soon as he walked up to that field line, and I ranged her at 45 yards.
Yep.
So as soon as he started to commit out into that field, I went and I set my sight to 45 because I was like, well, he's going to come right up to her,
Yep.
and that's where I'm going to shoot him. So as soon as I set my sight, I look up, fuck, he's already about there.
He was coming.
He was already there. So I draw back, and as soon as I draw back and get on him, I'm like, fuck, he is
It
not.
happened so fast.
Yeah, I instantly was like, fuck, he is not 45. So I held low, and I was not going for a heart shot. I was back of lungs, gut. I mean,
We were calling Chris Toth if we had.
I was putting one mid body
Yeah.
and letting it fly. So I held low, thought I had a good release, and as soon as I released it, I was watching my arrow. I fucking knew it. It was over his back. Like, as one, you could see the drop, but two, as that arrow was
talk
going,
about
it was just like, you just know,
It's sailing.
You just know it's not connecting, and I'm like, fuck.
There's no harder shot than aiming low on a deer and trying to shoot.
Yeah.
When they're a little further and you aim a little high, it's easy.
Yeah.
That arrow tucks right in. But when they're closer, there's the same thing that happened with that elk this year. I aimed low with a 40-yard pin and, like, just didn't get it right.
Yeah.
Well,
And it like, we do so much shooting, and you know what your bow does in that, like, 20 to 30.
because you don't
35
want
range.
you don't want to take the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't want to.
Yeah.
Now, like 45, I felt comfortable shooting that, but you just know your pin gap and you know what to expect. But when you're at 45, I ended up ranging it as soon as he took off, and he was probably 35 to 37.
He
in
just
reality.
closed the gap so fucking fast.
Yeah. Oh, it was real fast. And in hindsight.
Let's talk about this. I want to talk about the shot after the hunt.
Okay, so
yeah,
so the shot goes off,
Yeah.
It's windy. He doesn't know what happened.
No.
He takes off. This field we're on is only 80 yards wide.
Yeah.
So he takes off to the other side. The does don't even leave the field. They're just like,
You know
what
that
the fuck?
feeling right after you miss a deer? It's like, fuck, it's so over. I didn't have that for very long. Like
Yeah.
he like you said, and then he didn't leave the field.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we're sitting there watching him. I'm still videotaping him.
Yep.
Like,
And I'm wrapped. I got the harness strap halfway around my neck. and when he didn't leave, I was like, okay, I could take this back off. But we ended up watching him for 5 to 8 minutes more. He's went over to that field line, couple shakes of the tail, and he's just like, look, what the fuck was that kind of?
Right.
And he's like, okay. So
the wind blowing helped us, I think.
oh yeah, and the fact that he had no idea.
He's
We were
so
there.
preoccupied with those does. Like something happened real quick. What the fuck was that?
Yep.
And then back to the seeking he went.
Yep. So he already knew when he came across that field that those does, they weren't in. I shoot, miss. He kind of just, there was other deer feeding off to the north,
Yep.
and he just kind of was like, well, I'll just bop off and mosey this way, and he just went back to taking his sweet time,
Yep.
working the field.
When he stayed far north like that, it's when it's like, okay, it's over. Like,
yeah,
we're going
game
to sit here until it gets dark, and then we're going to have to process all this.
Yeah. It was.
The rest of the hunt wasn't that entertaining. There was some more does came in from the south, a shit buck.
Yeah, it was tough. That was my first ever archery miss. Now,
Clean miss.
I had bad shots.
Yeah.
But first ever like clean archery miss. That was.
And it far and above would have been your biggest deer.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
By 20 inches.
Like, we're sitting here watching this thing in the video, and like it's beautiful. The snow's falling. And it's like, oh my god.
Is this video been posted? Is it anywhere? No.
Well,
is it going to be anywhere?
Yeah, next Sunday.
Son of a bitch.
So yeah, next Sunday night you guys get to watch all this shit go down. And it'll do you justice. But we came back here, so like we had to know because Nick doesn't shoot lighted. At that time, he was not shooting lighted knocks. He's had bad experiences, like
Yeah.
for whatever reason.
Nobody makes a good one.
No,
No,
they do all suck. So he's not married to lighted knocks because he's only filming half his hunts. So we come back here to do some review. The first thing that I noticed upon review was that he didn't stop as long as we had thought he stopped. In my head, I'm still playing what I like saw in my head and not what the video camera tells me. I thought he was like broadside and stopped.
No,
But like the video does not show that.
he had his head down and he paused for a second. And I let it go. Like I was after last year, I was not giving him a meh, nothing.
Right,
I was fucking letting it go.
The second part was with how hard he was seeking and he was transfixed on these does. I was very surprised at the amount he ducked.
Oh, very.
Now I don't think it played any. I think he would have still sailed it over his back.
I think
But holy shit!
But he was chest to the
12 to
ground.
14 inches on that back line, especially around the shoulder area.
It was one of those ducks where their elbows like hit the ground and their chest.
I'm pretty sure he
brushed.
left a stomach print on
Yeah.
the fucking ground.
which in hindsight, the best case scenario if he didn't do that would have been just
Spine.
high. Best case would have been the spine.
Yeah.
But if I hit him, odds are it probably just sliced him right across the top of his back.
Hooked him.
It would have hooked him.
Yeah.
You know, so I'd rather miss him than hook him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe how much he like. It reminded me of when you shot at us the Gimp with your old slow bow back in the day. Now Nick's bow is literally twice as fast as your old bow was.
But that deer ducked and turned and the arrow got there.
Yeah, he ducked. That Nick's buck on this buck, he ducked so low and turned to the right and was like, it was just an incredible duck by that deer. But yeah, and the video is not as good as I want. Like the video of the deer is amazing, but the video of the shot was less than ideal because when he did his step and duck, I moved the camera as well.
So it's all just one blur.
It's all happening. Like the most important part of the whole situation had a lot of moving pieces, and which kind of sucked. But
so we couldn't definitively see where the arrow went, but
you did end up finding.
You knew it sailed
Yeah,
high.
yeah. I literally found the arrow off the video.
Yeah.
And I was like comparing. I was standing like 30 yards in front of the stand in that area, looking at corn stalks and which angles.
Which one it hit?
And I'm like, okay, I know his aim and center of body. I went over him right here. Right here's one that's going like this and two like this. And I literally walked over there and it was like, boop, right in the middle of them.
Because you have white fletchings.
Yeah.
So like at night in the snow, we just weren't finding them.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was ready to puke anyway, so I was ready to get the
And then that night was like,
Oh, he he ran the gauntlet. I mean,
Yeah.
that night he was
After dark, we're talking.
after dark. He was on that camera in that field an hour and 15 minutes past dark, and he was on cameras that I have not had him on cameras in 2 years, and he was just running the whole.
It was
block.
like the last night of vacation before we go home.
yeah.
But then he did go home, right? He's
Gone.
Boom.
gone.
And it was, you know what's funny about his entrance and exit? Had him once on that camera in the cornfield in velvet. The very next picture was in October back on the acorn flat.
Yep.
He ran his dick off that night.
Yep.
The last picture I had of him was at like 6 a.m. on the acorn flat, heading the same direction as when he came into town.
That
back
tells
in October.
me. That tells me where he's living.
It was just
like where he went. But to preface, I want to paint a picture of those woods that Nick was hunting in that area. Flat. So we got a field that tapers into a point off the road. Very flat. So in the landowners on the woods where he was doing the majority of his hunting, not where he missed him because we were across the field, but on the other side, that deer, the woods weren't logged, but those people burn firewood, so they clean up every single deadfall and dead ash tree that was on the property, which was a lot. Mm-hmm. A lot of the woods around here is dead ash, just so everyone knows. There's deadfalls everywhere. They cleaned them all up. So if you're a deer in that property, you can stand there, and it has a tiny little rise to it, and you can see hundreds of yards out into the field, into the woods. Like it's a good vantage point for deer. It doesn't offer them anything.
It's a staging point.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
No cover and no food. There's no acorns. I don't believe there's any oak trees in that flat, and there's no cover at all. The backside, farther, a couple hundred yards away, there's awesome cover and stuff. But right there specifically, it's just open woods with no understory. So like right now, there's just no bushes, no honeysuckle, no multiflora rose, none of that shit. And they can see forever. So it's kind of like a staging area, but more so like almost like a pasture where they're just, I mean, deer are just coming through, going away, coming in, coming out. It's incredible. Yep. And that's where he spent a lot of his time that fall. But like you said, after that night, gone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and, you go through the depression that you missed, and then you get all the pictures of him, and it's like, fuck, if he hangs on for 4 more days, give me 4 more days.
Yeah.
You don't even need 4 more. You need 1 more day.
Yeah, give me, because this was on a Thursday. Let me hunt you through the weekend again.
Yep.
But no, that was the last picture. I hunted for him on Saturday and Sunday. No pictures, no sightings. And then by Sunday night, I think there was like 10 minutes left of light, and I was over it. There's 10 minutes left of light, and I was like, the movement sucked. I was like, fuck this. Dropped my bow. You're
out early.
Yeah, I'm out early. I was just like, fuck it. We're going back to the truck, and we're gonna reevaluate our life.
It's done. Yeah. So he disappears, but where was I going to go with that? There was a direction I was going to go with that.
Where are we gonna go with it?
I don't know.
Well, he starts hunting. You start hunting a different buck then.
Well, yeah. Then it was like,
yeah. Rumors of his death. That's where I was going to go with it.
Yeah.
So we don't have any proof that this deer has been killed by anybody. Obviously, gun season has come and gone since then, the late rut. There are some rumors circulating that a deer that kind of looks like that might have been killed within a mile, but we have no pictures, no way to prove it.
if I've learned anything, I'm not writing deer off anymore.
Yeah, so right now we're going to just plan on seeing him again. So and here's another thing. We have seen him in the summertime a few times in a field about half a mile away. It's a field that has a lot of deer in it, and we catch glimpses of them in that field every summer so far. We've caught glimpses. So hopefully next summer while we're doing our driving, we'll be able to run into him. And, I mean, who even knows what the size of this deer would be? I mean, you guys can make your determination on the video. He's probably pushing 70s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would guess.
Yeah, I mean, just giant frame, good mass, splits, kickers, junk. It's got everything. He's got good twos.
He's beautiful.
He's fucking beautiful. Chocolate rack again. It would have been your second chocolate
big,
rack.
Big, heavy, dark. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's a 170 class deer. You took some time to kind of feel sad, but you kind of shifted right back into deer hunting because the Flyer 8 buck started as soon as that buck was gone. Flyer 8 kind of like re-popped back into the
Flyer was
the farm.
He I mean, Flyer was one that went into the season excited about, and then it was like, okay, I have this deer to worry about.
Right.
Put all the attention on him.
Yep.
And then it was like, during that time when that buck was running around, I wouldn't have shot flyer 8.
No.
I would. It was that buck or nothing.
Yep.
The rest of them just let them do unless some random showed up that was,
or Tyler's buck, but
yeah.
you never did see Tyler's buck.
Only buck I didn't see this year.
We're gonna talk a little bit about him later, but
So then it was like, okay,
gun season's looming at this point.
yeah, gun season's coming. I'm going to Mexico. Cask's getting married, and the goal was to kill a deer before Mexico
Because gun season, your farm gets raped.
gets destroyed.
The worst things that could ever happen for a farm happened that week.
Yeah,
Four-wheelers through the bedding areas.
especially a farm that goes unscathed.
Yeah.
Like
You only hunted the edge this year, except
past
for
2 years.
maybe like one or two. Tyler had a hunt up in
Yeah.
the Acorn Flat and stuff.
Yeah.
But really, you were only edge hunting the last couple years.
yeah, keep it on the fringes. Maybe put a camera or two deep in there. If they die, they die.
You don't put them on food. You put them on a scraper or a trail so they last a month and a half, 2
Yeah.
months. Yeah.
So then when all that pressure gets induced, it's like a light switch. So we went. It was flyer 8. History with them. Passed them multiple times.
Sheds are on the table here.
Yeah, passed them multiple times in the field that we ended up seeing them in.
Yep.
So kind of already knew the mapping of where to go. And then we went out.
It was this. I think the good encounter was it wasn't Sunday. Was it the Sunday before gun?
No.
I know we hunted the Sunday
A couple
before
days
gun.
before gun,
No,
probably.
it was
But
the
he
week-
didn't show the
it-
Sunday
it-
before
It was
gun.
the week before gun.
Okay.
Because the Saturday before gun, he daylighted there, and I got fucking hammered at work. Had to go in for work, and he was
That's
out
right.
there for 45 minutes.
I think so. It was the Friday before gun is when we had our encounter, I think. Because he
Yeah,
daylighted
yeah.
the day after
Yeah.
we encountered him.
Yeah, so it was Black Friday.
Yep, Black Friday.
Black Friday. So we go out Black Friday for him.
Showed up way too early.
Oh.
He showed up way too. He watched us walk in, I think, but
Yeah, well, no,
we can't
it's
tell
hard
the
to say.
timeline. Yeah.
I don't even know if I showed it to you, but yeah, but
No, you
I-
said that he came across that field.
Yeah, I got a
The
trail
field
camera
over.
video of him chasing a doe across the field, down into that ravine.
Wasn't
probably.
it like 3:30, 4 o'clock?
Yeah, it was like close to the time we got there.
Because we got there at 4.
So we no, we got it there at 3.
Did we get? Was 3 our meeting time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got set up and boom, it was like 4:20.
yeah, he was there early.
I mean, it was broad daylight.
Yeah.
A couple does popped up to the east, and I was glassing, there he is standing on the inside the wood line, and I'm like, Caleb, he's already out there.
Fuck,
I was like,
yeah.
But the problem with that hunt was
Wind was
the
fucking us.
The wind was dead. It was a west, but it was dead. So it was kind of dipping off, and
I think it was rolling back down that like
it wasn't enough to keep it
Yeah.
going beyond that little dip. So when they were working in, they were kind of already on edge because
she went out. She was doing the typical getting harassed doe thing. She went out in the middle of the
Yeah.
field to walk down, and he stayed on the edge. But it just fucked us.
Yeah, it was too early. Like there was no other deer to take the pressure off. But we ended up watching him for
half an hour.
the whole night basically.
Yeah.
He disappeared for a little bit, and then at last light came up on the
He
weak
pulled
side.
a fucking fast one on us. I want to know how he got. So just to make it simple, we watched him out the right side of the blind for 30 minutes on edge, stomping, come 10 feet closer, stomping, watching the doe. There wasn't enough deer, like you said, and then he disappeared north. I watched it. He got like even with us, and then went off to the north with the doe, like pretty quickly. She was spooked, I think, and he went with her, like with about 45 minutes of light left.
Yeah.
They disappeared, so we were like not on our game and kind of like fuck this, but
Yeah.
still got to hunt.
Well,
And then
yeah.
deer started pouring in.
Yeah, and
on
when
the left.
when all the deer started pouring in, he came back.
Yeah.
It was just too early of an encounter for you can't. I mean, at the end of the day, he's still a mature buck, but then he's exposing himself 2 hours before dark.
Yep.
And then as soon as that sun went down, all them deer started pouring out. Then he was comfortable, and then there he was on the weak side.
I happened to glance. It was too dark to film, but we could still see and shoot. And we had heard a bunch of shit and seen a bunch of shit. We'd filmed some smaller bucks coming in. So I looked out the blind, the front, and he's like 40 yards away. But the way the window, there was no shot. But like 40 yards away, standing there, looking the opposite way at some does, I think. And then he just walked into the bottom like he was unspooked. But
Yep.
He pulled he got all the way around us somehow and came out because he was facing north already, so he might have came out from the south for all I know.
Yeah.
Who knows? But somehow he got behind us.
So then I think that was Friday, and then that Saturday it was like high 26 degrees, bluebird skies.
You got fucked.
Fucking ideal, and I get a call at 10:30 that people are out of gas and I gotta go to work. So I knew when I heard that the odds of me getting through the shit we had to do at work that I probably wouldn't be hunting. And what do you know? I'm back in the middle of this beautiful thicket, purging out a pipeline. I got some fucking guy that's probably trespassing to go hunt, like sitting in his truck, and I'm like, hey, you got to shut your truck off or you're gonna explode here in a minute. He's like, oh shit, man. Like just some total goober. So he goes out there, and it was the weirdest setup. He was one sticking with a saddle and a Raven crossbow, and I'm like, fuck.
That's a weird combination.
A weird combination.
It's like wearing Ariat boots and getting in a Lambo. Like, what the fuck's going on
Super
here?
weird combination.
Yeah, it's like having a good smiling fucking dude.
That's a new one. I haven't heard that one yet.
So as this pipeline's blowing gas all over the place, I'm like sitting there checking my cameras, and he showed up.
He better turn his fucking truck off, and Nick can get on his unforensically.
Well, I got to protect the community. I can do what I want. So,
intrinsically safe phone.
so he's out there in that field. I mean, it's
early,
and then he
was at like 20 yards from the blind, just hanging out.
Yeah, he was out there till dark. I mean, 45 minutes he was out there in daylight. So it was like, okay, that was a missed opportunity, and I don't know if I hunted Sunday or not.
No, we did because I left Ted's turkey fry.
Okay, we hunted
I left
Sunday.
the turkey fry.
And we got.
I specifically only drank. I brought 2 beers with me, drank both of them, and boogied out of there because I knew if I stayed, I'd be shit-faced.
We hunted Sunday,
and I was still in trouble from the whiskey night.
Yeah, doghouse.
Yeah.
Didn't see him Sunday. I don't know where.
No, we just saw a bunch of small bucks. He was not on camera, and he was not
Yeah.
in the field. It was kind of a bust.
Yep. So then that brings us to Monday.
And we've already kind of covered that on our end. Like, we all went hunting separately. Nick went out on his own. You went back to where the 12, we called him the 12, I guess, the big one.
Yeah.
You went back to that field.
It was Monday morning, and my alarm's going off, and Sam is fucking hammer fisting me in the chest to wake me up. And I mean, I don't take gun hunting that serious. I literally only got out of bed for the tradition of going.
Yeah.
So I pull in there.
Which I'm surprised because some years you don't even do that.
Yeah. It was like.
But you had a buck tag in your pocket and lots of deer on the farms.
Yeah, lots of deer, and I'm going to Mexico in like less than 48 hours. So, it was daylight when I walked out there.
Yeah.
And got held up in the field right where I had an encounter with the big buck. Bunch of does came through, and I was trying to get to a stand that was 350 yards away to the south. Got back to the back of the field, and I just paused to survey what I could hear because it was
gun season, Mosey.
Well, and it was so crispy out from being so cold that night that you could hear a mile away. You could hear everything. So I knew I was going to make a shit ton of noise going back there. And the only reason I was going back there was, one, the camera back there had been really good.
Yeah, Tyler's buck.
Yeah.
The night before. Oh, that's what happened the night before. We forgot to talk about. We could hear commotion like crazy.
Yeah, Tyler's buck was fighting other bucks back there.
Yes. So we didn't see any of the bucks, but all night long you would hear like the bucks fight, and I'm not always right, but I kept saying, like, Nick, I can hear a buck fighting, and I thought it was back towards the trucks the whole time. Like, there was 2 times I remember specifically, like, Nick, I can hear a buck fighting, but I think it's back towards the truck.
Gracias.
I was wrong. It was not towards the truck. It was the opposite way, but there was bucks fighting.
Yeah, and the trail cameras proved that.
Yeah.
We didn't get the fights, but got all the bucks, got the posturing.
Fights in the background. You can hear right.
There's a buck standing in a scrape while there's a fight happening.
And it was that's the thing. It was Tyler's buck, which we have not seen on the hoof yet this year. We've only had 2 or 3 encounters over the years. He's at least 6 or 7 years old, maybe older. Had been wounded. Like, it was it was kind of off character for this buck to be out in daylight, broad daylight, doing rut stuff. But we haven't got any proof of life of him yet either, have we?
Yeah, no, not since that day.
Which
historically, that's when he leaves anyway.
True, he does leave.
But we'll see what happens. So I'm trying to tiptoe back to that stand, and I stop, and there was like a perfect tree that had another tree come up that would give me cover. So I just stopped and I leaned up against it, and I probably wasn't there 3 to 5 minutes. I can hear stuff moving down in the valley. So I pull up the binos, good 3-year-old coming through with a dink buck, and then I'm watching them, and all of a sudden there's bucks everywhere. So I ended up seeing, I don't know, 8 to 12 different bucks, a lot of 3-year-old small bucks, and then
Obviously, a hot doe back there.
oh yeah, and
It had been for 24 hours.
yeah, an impostor buck was with the hot doe. So I see him as soon as they must have been bedded up, probably 140 yards away from me, because as soon as the young 10, the 3-year-old 10-point got up there, and he had there's already more bucks up there that I could see once he got up there. Imposter buck was on his feet, and he's just fluffed out, posturing these bucks, and they're kind of backing around, and then there's deer everywhere, so it's mayhem. So I crouched down as I'm seeing all this
Your
action.
knees still hurt?
Oh yeah, yeah. We went to Polar Express last night, and I was crammed up in the little fucking booth, and we got out, and I was limping because my bad knee's still jacked up. So long story short, imposter buck, he postures all these deer away. I mean, he's just stiff-legged, just.
We call him the imposter buck because he literally looks exactly like Flyer 8, minus about 5 inches, and he doesn't have a kicker, a bladed G2. Like, that's literally the only difference. He looks identical otherwise.
Yep. So, and even when I initially saw him, I glassed him. I'm like, oh, it's imposter buck, whatever, Well, the other bucks, they get postured off, and he ends up bringing his doe to about 80, 90 yards from me, and he just beds up. He just beds up facing me.
Because probably about 8:15, 8:30 at this point.
Yeah, probably about that.
About time to lay down.
So he's bedding in a wide open hardwoods, right underneath one of our old stands, and
Bucket tree.
And I'm just watching him. And there's other bucks that keep kind of moving throughout the morning. I'm hoping Flyer shows up up. Yeah. So Tyler's buck, I was hoping. That would
have been a story. Ah, God damn it.
So I'm sitting there and I'm glassing imposter buck, and I'm like, fuck, he's not bad. He's not bad. And I keep looking at him, and time's going by, and we're like 30 minutes into this deal. My right leg, I don't even think there's fucking blood flowing in it at this point. And I hear something to the right, and a bunch of turkeys. My right would be to the north, back of the field. 20 turkeys come out into the field, and I'm like, okay, well, at least it's not deer, because the wind was coming from the south. They would have busted me. So I'm watching them, and I'm like, I look over at him, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna stand up because my right leg is gonna fall off. I'm gonna have to get my leg cut off before I go to Mexico in 2 days. So I'm like, I'm gonna stand up and let him bust me and run off. And I stand up, and I'm like fucking wiggling my fat ass up the tree, and the bark's catching my coat and shit, And I get up, and my leg, it was like unkinking a hose. I could finally feel the blood just shoot down to the bottom of my foot again. and I look at him, and he's just still laying there, like no cares, doesn't even. And I think he sees me, but I think he's just playing the part of, this is my doe. I'm the tough guy.
You're over there.
Ran all these bucks off all night. He's probably been back there.
Yeah, you're over there. And I'm looking. I'm like, fuck, he's not a bad deer. And I look to my right, because these turkeys are still going crazy, and I see orange behind me.
Yeah, here comes.
And I'm like,
Orange Army's coming.
I'm like, okay.
The Rebs are on the horizon.
Yeah. It was like.
It's now or never.
Yeah, so I'm like, fuck. If this guy walks back here, he's definitely going to.
Sling all 3 shots.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and. Which that really didn't play a big part in my decision. So I go and I look back over, and I pick up my binos and I glass him. I'm like, I'm killing him. And the whole time I'm looking at him, I'm like, he looks like Flyer.
Yeah. Minus literally a bladed G2.
What is 5 inches going to do for me? Still a mature deer.
Ask your wife.
Oh. 5 inches would hurt. Hurt.
Your wife's very little. So.
Yeah. My thumb gets the job done. So I make the decision. I'm gonna shoot him. So as I'm making that decision, now all of a sudden he cares about me being there.
He probably sees the other orange guy too. Did he ever see?
I don't think so, because it was funny because where I had stopped in the morning was in a deadfall because all the other deer out in that field that I could hear. It was a deadfall. I cleared out a little patch and I sat there for 30 minutes. Other orange, which was probably 120, 50 yards away from me. Other orange guy was sitting in the exact spot that I cleared out because he said he saw me. So
That's our turkey hunting spot. We should leave that there for turkey hunting. It's a
Yeah.
good spot to hang out for turkeys.
yeah. So I go and now he sees me, and the only shot I have is a frontal. So I go and I put my gun on the side of the tree, squeeze one off, click. I'm like, what the fuck?
I forgot about this part.
So I go and I eject that round, go to re-rack another, click. But this time it's just the hammer sound. It sounds different. And I'm like, what in the fuck?
She's all gummed up.
So I go and I pull the bolt back, and this deer, he's still standing over there, just stomping his foot, and I think he blew twice at me, but he's not leaving.
Yeah.
His doe hasn't even left yet. And so I go and I look at the gun. Well, the spring of my magazine's worn out.
Same
so,
as mine.
So it's not shoving the next round up in. So I tilt the gun over and get back on him, squeeze it off, pile drives him.
Yeah.
I mean, he does a front flip, lands on his side, whatever, takes off. He probably went 30, 40 yards.
Yeah. Super dead.
So that was super cool. Called up you and called up my dad and my uncle.
I was already out of the woods. I was standing in there when he called me.
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
You thought I was lying to you.
Well, I thought you'd shot a bigger one. Not that this deer was small by any means, but I thought you had shot one of the big ones, and because you were like, because I was like, oh, I'm out of the woods already. You said something like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm already out of the woods. I shot that doe. You said something like, well, you want me to come? You want some help with it or something? And I'm like, nah, me and Isaac already got it back at the shop. So I'm thinking like, you're done hunting either because like you got fucked by the orange guys, and you're just mad, or you're gonna play this game for a little bit and then like, oh, by the way, we need to also go over to my farm but yeah, then you told me what had happened, and I'm like, I mean, we met your dad. The orange guys, we call them the old timers. They were all at the pull off by that time. They were done for the day. Your dad was there. Your uncle's there. We went and got him. I mean, he's a good buck.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's a good deer.
What did he end up scoring? Like
133.
133 and some change, or 132 and some change. 133. As an 8-point, which is a good deer. That's the same size as Dad's buck, same size as your buck last year, Isaac, which was a 9. I mean, it's a good mature, and he was mature as hell.
Yeah.
Mature as hell. I mean, his neck was as big around as a propane tank. Huge.
Yeah. He was mature, and I mean, at the end of the day, I was happy. And when I saw him, I was like, fuck. During bow season, I probably would have passed him just because it would have been like quick in and out.
And you also know during bow season, like I can pass this deer. We'll have there's gonna be more good hunts tomorrow.
Well,
but
I'm very much a target-oriented guy. Like you're either the target or you're not. So it was a game time to, and I don't regret that I shot him at all.
No, I wouldn't either. I mean, fuck. I would do anything for that deer to show up on our farm.
Anything.
Yeah.
The only thing that makes this story not sweet is the fact that 2 days later the flyer 8 got killed by the guy that watched you shoot him.
Yeah.
So the old timer Orange Army guy that watched Nick shoot this buck shot flyer 8 2 days later. Not close to there. From what I understand, it wasn't even. It was probably 400 or 500 yards away from there. So he was.
And I imagine it was probably the same scenario because the flyer 8. The last time he was on camera was that Saturday, and I think it was Wednesday. He popped back in and was close to daylight, and I'm like, but he was down on the south side, and I'm like, well, fuck, you could hang out down there, you're safe down there.
Yep.
Well, next thing you know, I think it was started on Tuesday. The quad starts showing up, and they're riding.
The first couple of days was only walking.
Yeah, then they brought the quad out, and I can only imagine, it was kind of similar. They just popped in on him, and he just he stood there and let him shoot him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's
the deer don't have any advantage in Ohio anymore.
But you know what? It sucks, but that could be the last good deer he kills.
Yeah,
so it's like
I talked to Tate a little bit about this. Like, if we're gonna lose our hit list bucks that we spend time and money and all this stuff on, if we're gonna lose them, it might as well be to some of the old timers.
oh
around
yeah,
here.
absolutely,
Like,
absolutely.
you know, not some young punk, not some guy flying in from Michigan.
Some guy. I'm not even gonna say it. So,
right. So I would rather lose them that way. Unknown is the worst. Disappear forever is the worst.
In that 140-inch 8-point that they killed, made their entire fucking week.
Yeah, it made their last couple years. They haven't taken a good buck in a couple years.
It was whatever. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it works. It works good. And that leaves us to where we're at now. Nick's tagged out. Me and Isaac are not. Tyler's not. Most of the rest of the crew's tagged. So everyone's pretty much tagged except for the Siman Brothers and Tyler. And we're going to take this opportunity, since we got 6 weeks of season left. Tyler did not get to hunt much. We already talked about mine and his hunt. He did not get to hunt much because his baby was born, Mila Francis, on Monday. That same day Tyler's baby was born, that all that happened.
Yeah.
The whole we already talked about Megatron, how Tyler was trying to kind of hunt that deer, and his brother ended up killing him that day as well because he had to be at the hospital and all that. But this gives us 6 weeks to A, find out what deer's still alive on your guys' farms. B, try to get Tyler a buck, do some patterning. We can take this time to move some stands around, get him where we want, kind of set up next season early. Tyler's buck, the buck we call Tyler's buck, is still alive. We actually don't have any proof that he's alive since gun season, but we never do get him after gun season much.
That deer's
very rare.
That deer's fucking living forever.
Yeah. But going into next year, I am excited, and I know he'll probably be like a de facto number one and the one you missed. But I just want to kind of follow that deer, Tyler's buck, it'll be the 4th or 5th season that we have been following this deer. And I'm just very curious as to what he's going to be antler wise and like the amount of time he spends on the farm. I mean, that's something exciting to look forward to. Is Tyler's buck?
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see what he does.
Because his rack was different. It's hard to explain. He used to be very cagey. So come out, go forwards, G2s, G3s, G4s, good brows that are really tall, medium mass, but a good input. Like, you see this deer, there's a lot of antler above his head because he's a 10-point frame. He did that for 3 years. I think he was maybe a 9 the first year we kind of watched him, but he did that for 3 years. This year, he got wide, lost mass. Brows are still crazy tall, but they're not close together anymore.
Oh, they're a foot apart.
Yeah, his brows went from being 8 inches close together to 10 inches a foot apart.
Yeah.
And his frame got bigger, and he's a 9-point. Yep. But I do believe he will probably revert back to the way he looked 1 year removed from injury. I think.
I mean, no matter what he turns into, he's going to be
something.
He's going to be ancient.
Yeah.
So,
his body size in these trail camera videos is insane.
Oh, he's
you see the deer Nick shot or the deer Nick shot at, the Flyer 8 and like impostor buck, we're talking like 230, 240 on the hoof, maybe 250 on the hoof.
Well, and I think a lot of
he's way bigger than
giant.
Even compare him to other mature bucks that we've had, with losing the loss of losing the function of that back leg last year, he relied on his front.
Chest.
His chest is a fucking Brahma bull.
It is it's hard to, I know guys have seen big bucks. Like, this isn't a big rack buck that weighs 250 pounds. This is a 275, maybe 300-pound animal.
Yeah,
he is fucking huge body-wise, which also might make his rack look smaller. His rack doesn't look small. It just doesn't have the mass that it used to.
Yeah.
So who knows what his, it'd be great to get a comparison of him standing directly next to, Flyer or something to kind of gauge, but huge body.
Yeah. No, he'll be exciting to see. There's always new deer over there. So,
yeah.
So, who knows what next year will bring, but we got this year to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to get Tyler a nice deer. He's still got that one that he was hunting on during gun season. There's some options available. We just got to get time to get a couple stands up, get some corn out, get some cameras rebatteried, and it's not going to be today.
Yeah, and we need weather. This week's, but I think, Monday's supposed to be, Tuesday's going to be 50?
Yeah, the 40s and 50s and rain is going to happen for a while here. So the next, I bet you it'll be first or second week of January. Maybe we'll finally be able to get some 20s and snow, and that'll be when this stuff happens,
Yep.
But we'll keep pushing. Hopefully something shows up around here too.
Yep.
Yeah, there's still some options around here, but the push for Tyler is going to be a little bit more exciting, I think, than our push. Unless something drastic happens, but
this is fucking terrible over here. I mean,
we harped on that a lot last podcast with the outfitter and everything, but I think we'll slowly start building our age structure bucks, and that's a perfect example. How many mature bucks were over there on that farm regular this year? 4 super matures, like 4 plus.
Yeah, you have 4 or 5.
And we had one that disappeared on October 24th here.
Yeah.
And haven't had one since. Maybe one, and he's got a weak rack. So, like,
Woof.
that's what we're dealing with. I know Isaac's giving me the look because he's got to go.
Yeah, I was supposed to be at a party half hour ago.
Are we at 1?
He's got a wine.
1 o'clock.
Well, you got a wine tasting.
No, Brown's party.
Oh,
I got the Browns winning in my parlay today.
a Browns party. I've wasted some fucking time before, but not quite like that.
All right, anything else before we...
No.
Caleb's dying over there.
Nick's got to take a swig of the kill bottle.
Yeah, take a swig. Yeah. What episode is this?
73.
All right, so Nick's taking a swig. It's episode 73. Thanks for watching. We are out.
We are out.
Fuck, that's bad.
Freeman said it was good, and he's a whiskey
Freeman don't know
guy.
shit.
I'm not a brown juice drinker.
Yeah, you're not. Well, you only get a sip on it once a year, so that's not bad.
All right, we're out.
We're out.